Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? I just wanted to check in on this cold Chattanooga Sunday. I know that places up north have snow on the ground, and I'm glad that we don't here, but I definitely saw some flurries today. I had the plan of going walking in a park near where my grocery pickup was going to be, and I woke up later than I should have to go do that, and I was glad that was a blessing because it was so cold. It poured down raining last night, and that brought in a cold front, and there's no way that I could have been walking in that park beside the river today. So, blessing in disguise, and also our plans rarely work out the way that we think they're going to. So, always a lesson in every single thing. Trying out a different angle today. I've got my back to my desk. I'm trying to look into the camera more and less at the ceiling because I really hate seeing myself on camera. It's very uncomfortable, but I've got to get used to it. So even if I'm looking above, I'm trying to make eye contact. I also did a little bit of transmuting before this video because I'm trying to loosen up here. I'm trying to show more of my personality. I've been making these videos for over a year and I still have not come out of my shell on camera or gotten truly 100% comfortable with seeing myself there. So if I'm going to do this, and I am sure I'm going to do this, I need to get better at it. I need to get more comfortable. So we'll see how this goes. Transmuting. Definitely go watch my video on transmuting. Thank you for the new likes, for the new subscribes. I have seen that. My analytics have gone up lately, and I'm so excited to have anyone, whether you're a hater or not. I'm still giving you knowledge. You're still taking it in, whether you want to admit it or not. I do have some things to offer that can help everybody, no matter what you're going through. So even if you try to deny it, I know you love me. I know you love me. It's hard not to. No conceit in that. I just know how people receive me. And it's much better in person, but this is what we got. So we're going to go with it. And I know that if you let yourself let me in, that you could have something that I have to offer, and I am here ready to give it to you. So let's do what we can with what we got. And I wanted to read something today out of this book. I showed it in another video. I took the cover off of it because I think the leaves are very tranquil, and I like that better. It's a used book, so the cover was kind of worn, but what's the name of it? I have to go inside to the page. It's A Meaningful Life by Bo Lozoff. I read from this on another video, but there are many things marked, which is why I liked it, because someone has already found great value in this book. They have marked things, they have dog-eared pages. I saw that it was very resourceful for someone else, and the passages that they marked stood out to me as something that I would be interested in. So for $3, I was like, yes. I wanted to do the video on anger today, and this message relates to that, on how we deal with things that make us mad. When you go through a spiritual awakening, or when you go through a hard time and you want to be taking the high road, you don't want to give them what they want. You don't want to give them that reaction that they're looking for to feed into the very biased, false narratives that they will push to the public to gain support, because if they're in low vibrations, they're going to look for support in droves. They run in packs. They have to have numbers against you, because for one, you should take that as a compliment, because if they have to do that, imagine how powerful you are. Imagine how much energy and positivity and light that you radiate, to where a group of people have to come against you, and then that's not enough. So they have to tell lies and spew hatred to recruit more people. And then when that doesn't pan out and they have to go to plan C and D and E and F, that needs more people, and it requires more lies, and eventually they'll run out of lies. Eventually, if you just keep being who you are, everything that they're doing in the dark will come to the light. So don't worry about them. But that's just the name of the game. That's why I'm saying that, because when you are who you are, you're being authentic. You're taking the high road. You're not feeding into the narratives or giving them what they want. They need that energy to fuel the smear campaign. They need the energy to defame your character and have it be successful. So if you are giving them what they want, if you're reacting to what they're putting out and what they're trying to do to hurt you or bring out a response, you are fueling what they are trying to give momentum to. So if you're not doing that, you're not giving them an ounce of your energy, you are not reacting, you're not fueling it with your power source, they can't get very far with it anyway. They have to keep coming up with different things, and often they're projecting. Like, say, someone who is mentally ill, projecting mental illness on someone else because they know a lot about that already. They have gone to the doctor, they've been diagnosed, they're more than likely on medication, and they've had many outbursts in publics showing their mental illness. So they know more on this subject than anybody else. So it's very easy for them to talk for hours and give bullet points and PowerPoint, presentations on how you are like this, and they know that you are like this because they're like that. It's coming from them. That's what they know the most about. So that is the narrative that they are pushing on you, because they could talk forever about it, because they embody it themselves, right? Prostitution. Never been a prostitute. I will never be a prostitute. I've never sold myself for money. I never will. I feel like I'm a magician at this point. I can manifest pretty much anything. It always happens in God's timing, and there's always free will that comes into play. So I could always take a wrong turn. I could always make a wrong move, and I did a lot of that in the past. But I'm done with that now. I have let my intuition guide me for a long, long time, and I did that on purpose. It was pretty much an experiment at first because I kept feeling guided to do it. After I'd prayed, knew there was a higher calling on my life. I prayed for God to get me on my path and in my purpose, however that had to happen. And then I got a pull to follow my intuition. And I said, well, sure. I had just gotten some money from selling a house, and I had some time where I didn't have to be a slave to work, and I had quit drinking. I had not quit smoking weed yet. That is something that I did for a long, long time. I know a lot about it. I no longer do that. I haven't done that in years now. But I didn't quit everything. But I thought, let me just stick my toe in this pool and see what happens. And I started following my intuition, and I got back into cakes, and I was so much better at it than I had been before. And I knew I was on the right track because there have been lots of copycats out there. Now, I'm not saying no one else can make cakes. No one else can make cakes like I do. There's lots of people that are better than me. And I supported a lot of people that were trying to learn after I started by printing out edible images for them, by giving them pointers, by telling them where to go on YouTube. I'm a proud graduate of YouTube University when it comes to cakes. You can learn anything from YouTube. So I'm not saying no one else can be out here making cakes because I was making cakes. No, it's the people that hated on me that went and tried to do it and didn't do a great job because they thought that, well, it's so easy. Like, she's nothing, right? It's the narrative that they put out about how anybody could do it. She's not special. I didn't think that I was the only one that could do it. And I would gladly help others and let them know that if you need a side hustle, or if this is your passion and you've just been afraid to dive in, I told them where to go, how to start doing it, and I was freely open to answering any questions. But these people didn't ask me any questions. They just tried to go about it on their own, acting like anybody could do it. Now, even though if you can follow instructions, yes, anyone can do it. Two, though, to get a fan base, to get a clientele built up, you do have to have a certain amount of charisma. You do have to have great customer service. You do have to be able to listen to people and what they want and be able to bring all of those ideas and bring it to life. You have to have a certain knack for being creative, period, to think outside the box, ways to bring those ideas to life that maybe hasn't been done before, or a way to really make it pop and stand out against other people's works. Because I had a mentor for a long time. I had a car accident and owed money. I still owe money on that car accident, but it definitely put a hamper to my whole getting a brick and mortar going, because things started to go downhill in my life fast, and it put the brakes on that real quick. But the business mentor opened my mind to how even though a lot of bakers in town were like, that's a Walmart cake, or those are Walmart prices, he very much put it into perspective as a fact that even though we might think of ourselves as better because they're custom cakes, that we're using things that Walmart doesn't use, that we are in competition with Walmart and Publix and things like that at all times. So you have to be open to all of those things. It's a business also. So if you don't have a business sense, which when I first started, I didn't at all. And after I got back to it, I had been a general manager of several businesses, and I was ready to be a business owner myself. So there's lots of things that come into play that you have to build up to. Not everybody can just dive right in, and they saw that and they nosedived immediately, got complaints, were crying. It's not as easy as you think it is. You have to put really, really hard work into things like that, and you have to be determined. Did my business work out? No. I don't have any of my supplies anymore. They're all locked away from me at my uncle's house. So when things like that happen to you, you have to just let it go. Don't hold on to it. Don't kick and scream. Don't give them what they want. If that was denied from you, that was God. God allowed that. Even though someone else was being malicious and took something from you, God allowed it, so it had a purpose. You have to trust Him and surrender and let it go. Okay? Can't be angry about the things that the enemy tries to do. If you are angry, it is only going to work against you, because you're going to act out. You're going to do things that you'll regret. You're going to do things that make it worse. You're going to internalize that poison. It's not going to do anything but manifest as poison in your own life. Even if you move on, if you don't release it, if you don't forgive it, it's only going to hinder you going forward, even if you've left those people, places, and things behind. So we're going to talk about the anger. This passage I thought was awesome. It says, we must try to understand that kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and genuine goodwill are the basic tenets of every wisdom tradition. They are not new ideas and are not mere suggestions or naive notions. They are instructions from above. If we follow the instructions, we will thrive. If not, we will suffer. It's not a philosophy, it's a fact. This is the most important thing to consider when we struggle with our feelings of hatred, revenge, or indifference. Our backs are against the wall. We cannot have fully meaningful lives until we come to terms with these universal teachings of compassion. It may take a long process of development, but you will have taken a huge step forward when you surrender to the irrefutability of this. And then in the same chapter, a different part, I really like this. The spiritual powers of the universe will not judge us by the crimes that have been committed against us. They will judge us by how we respond. So I thought that was very important and very relative to the things that I've been through, and something that I can definitely speak on. When I spoke about my last video about how when I moved into my uncle's and I didn't surrender, and I found myself thrown into that deep into the pool with all the lights turned out, my uncle had always been nice to me. He had always helped me out. He was definitely an energy vampire. I felt like my grandmother had babied him. He lived at home for he was in his 50s before he was married briefly and lived with his wife for maybe 5 years, maybe if that. She had children before him. They never had children, so he still has never had children. And then he went back to my grandmother's. So prior to being 50 something, he only lived in another house other than my grandmother's for 4 or 5 years. So before she died, he got his own house and moved out, and her house, and I believe that this was only because her house was falling apart. He left my grandmother in a house with a bad roof that was leaking everywhere, causing electrical problems, mold. It was shorting out appliances, and while he was still there, he would just buy a new appliance. He would never help to put money into fixing the actual cause of the problem that the appliance went haywire due to, but left her in that state. And she had been taking care of everything. He would write out his bills. She would go and, not that he had many bills, he pretty much invested his money in the stock market. He tried to build up his own portfolio. She would run and be his secretary and pay all of his bills and take care of all of the things that he needed done without complaint, because she loved him, because that was her son. But he was never made to grow up. He was never made to stand on his own 2 feet. And yet he had this huge ego. Like, he deserved all of this. He was so entitled. That's the narcissistic family that I grew up with, aside from the ex-husband that I had. I've been dealing with this since I was born. She was my mother, but he didn't want me to call her mom. He would come in every day yelling and screaming at her because if she had the smallest thing that she needed from him, or she tried to call him out on anything that he was doing that was taking advantage of her or not fair or not right, he immediately started raising his voice and cussing at her and causing this huge tantrum so that she would stop. And it worked. So he kept doing that like his whole life with her, because he knew that that would make her shut up. So even though he hadn't done this to me, I don't know why I expected him to be different from the person that he always was. Oh, he's always been that way. He just never did it to me. So when I moved in with him and he had this alcoholic, manipulative, conniving girlfriend that lived right across the street with a key to the house, they would gang up on me and they would try and bully me. And as soon as I put up a boundary and was like, no, I didn't like her from day one, we're not going to be besties. I'm not going to fall for the manipulative monologues that she's giving about, I told him to let you move in, and I've talked him into investing into your business. I don't want you to invest in my business. I don't want investors. I don't want you anywhere near my business. I don't want to have to ask you for nothing. I want complete control of my business. I don't want anybody holding anything over my head. I don't want you to think that you've done me any favors at all, because this is my uncle. He should love me, and he should want to put a roof over my head when I'm having a hard time. I did not see her as any kind of savior, especially with her drinking, especially with her trying to be a bully, with her trying to confront me about why I didn't like her when I'd made it very clear why I didn't like her. And her behavior alone should tell herself that she's not healthy. People don't like that. It's not healthy for them or their children. So lots of things, chaos and confusion that was going on. I reacted to that immediately. It made me very angry that they were trying to step on my toes, that they were trying to run my life, that they were trying to call me crazy when they were acting the way that they were acting. I was like, me? Mental illness? Me? Do you looking at yourself? And that's when I started recording them. You can go watch that video on my channel. The part that I didn't catch on the video that made me record was her saying that, fuck you, Carrie, you're a broke bitch that needs her uncle to pay all of her bills. Which I didn't need him to pay any of my bills. He didn't pay any extra for me to live there with him except for electricity and water. I cleaned the house. There was no mention of me paying him anything. I was just there to get back on my feet. So I started recording because I was like, what the hell is this? And then at the very end, she's like, is it mental illness? Are you looking at yourself? Are you hearing yourself? And you're saying that I have a mental illness because I don't like the way that you're acting and don't want that in my life. Like, there's some disconnect here. There's some you just being oblivious to who you are as a person. And there's no way that I'm going to be the only one that sees this. So I'm going to put you on blast, and it's still there. But I never fought fire with fire after the first week. It happened longer after the week. I was there maybe 3 weeks before this happened, and that was only because she was out of town for a good week or two before anything happened. But as soon as she got back in town, it was like manipulation. And then when I was like, strong arm, no, I put up the whole boundary, and then it got bad. And then he was screaming at me, I was screaming at him. And the thing that made me stop engaging in that is he said he wanted me to just shut up. And I was like, there it is. There it is. He wants me to be here and be submissive to this and just be fully compliant with their plan, whatever they've got going on here. And he told me about plans. That was part of me resisting and putting up the boundaries because, well, me and her talked, and this is what we think you should do, and we think you should be here X amount of months, and we think you should do. And I said, hold on, you and her, this is not your life. Either you support me being here in the plan that I have for myself on getting back on my feet, and I didn't even want to be there as many months as they had in their plan calculated for me to be there. So I was like, what is this concocted plan for my life? I am over 40. What in the actual fuck is going on? And then after the screaming match and me trying to call the police and them obviously not caring, I stuck to the just shut up thing. And so that's what I will never do. I will never stop telling my story. I will never shut up. Will I engage in their activities? Will I react the way that people want me to react because they have inflicted pain and trauma and done hurtful things and taken things away from me? When that doesn't bring out the response they want, they'll take something else away. If that doesn't do it, they'll poke at me some other way. If that doesn't do it, they'll try to get more support for their cause. They peddle these stories, the same script to everybody. And if you listen and observe, it's their story because I'm going to be here showing my baseline the entire time. It is my personality. It is my charismatic, funny self that you're going to see over and over. It has nothing to do with what they try to put out there about me. Now, will we meet in person? Some of you, yes, you've already met me in person. Some of you, no, this is what you're gonna get because I have closed myself off to the public in recent months, and I'm so glad about it. Not that I don't like it. I love interacting with people. I love meeting people, learning from people, exposing myself to different things, and learning from people that have different backgrounds and all of the things that they have to offer. I love embracing that about people. But in what I'm going through, it has been complicated because it's manufactured sometimes. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I just got a message yesterday from a guy that had reached out to me while I was at my uncle's who told me I was being gang stalked. I would often try to get out of the house when I didn't have cakes to do and would go to the park. And it was a park very close by, and it actually is the one that I ended up camping in for months. But at the time, I still lived at his house, and I would go just to meditate, just to be by the water. It's very healing just to be in nature. I would go swimming. This was still warm weather. I would go swimming when I had my son there. And then people that were around me, I could hear them talking amongst themselves about me and how they were going to jump me. And they were going to beat my ass as soon as I got out of the water. And they were trying to wait me out. And then we would stay in the water even when things like that weren't happening till dark because my son loved it. We had never done anything like that before. So he didn't want to go home. And I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to be there. but he wanted to swim. And so we would stay there till it was dark sometimes. And so we actually were there longer than they wanted to be there, so they eventually left. But I had put something like this in my video, and one of my former coworkers had reached out and said, yes, he knew these people. They were coming and following me to Chester Frost Park. And I was like, okay, so somebody knows, somebody has seen this. I knew it wasn't in my head, but somebody validated it for me. And publicly, he put it on one of my Facebook posts. So everybody saw it, and I was like, okay. And I just like hearted it with the whole like hug emoji and went on. When it came time for court, I had asked him to come forward, and I can talk about this because it never happened. But I asked him to come forward and talk about it, to validate it, and give the details that he knew about it to the judge. No response. But then months and months later, when court is over and done, I don't need his input anymore. He sends me a Facebook message yesterday and was like, hey, I haven't seen you on here. You okay? Now, I will never respond to that. But this is how it goes. I felt like he was on my side because he was giving me information that probably somebody didn't want him to be giving me. And two, we were friends, I thought, outside of our acquaintances, outside of this situation. So he was unbiased, he was impartial, and that he might have some thread of a conscience and just not want bad things to happen to other people, period. So, in reaching out, I thought I might get some help. But no, now he wants to act like he's concerned, and I don't find him as a friend anymore. So he will never get a response from me. But if you've ever had to go through something like this, it will pull on you. It will make you feel like you should be furious, like you should fight back. And I've seen a couple of YouTube posts recently where somebody was saying, get up, stop crying, fight back. Fighting back looks like sometimes, depending on what you're going through, and if you have been to court and you've been gagged or you've been labeled as something, fighting back looks like possibly going to jail. Fighting back looks like violating a court order. So, in my walk with God, my fighting back is telling my story, being very genuine, being very authentic, keeping my head up, keeping my goals, transmuting any negativity sent to me, any sadness that I might feel, to sit with that, to bring it out, to let it out, to feel all of those feelings. Let it have its space and then let it go. And then any problem that still exists that I don't have control of, that's outside of myself, I only have control of myself. I will very much, in this learned skill, be calm. Live in your own bubble, the bubble that you create for yourself, the emotional maturity that will eventually come with living in that bubble. You're not going to let people disturb your peace anymore. That is going to be your new norm. That is going to be your new lifestyle. And the more that you put it into practice, the more that it becomes a habit, it is just your stasis, your homeostasis, whatever you want to call it. That is your new norm. That is where you live. This is my balance. This is my peace. This is my world. No one's gonna disturb that. I don't care how hard you've tried, because you've tried hard, really hard, for a long, long time. And if I can maintain that, then I know that I don't have to go back to the old way. It didn't serve me. It only served them. It's only going to hold you back from your goals and your dreams and your purpose. It's going to pull you into those low vibrations where they are. It's going to keep you from going up. You're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to hurt yourself, possibly hurt your loved ones, cause yourself to go to jail, cause yourself to have more financial problems because it's going to cost you money to deal with those things. So anything outside of controlling yourself that still exists when you put those things into action, give it up to God. That's what fighting back in your new norm is going to look like. Giving it up to God, saying, God, I surrender. I surrender all of these things to you. It is much, much bigger than me. I am simply a soldier in your army. Thank you for allowing me and helping me to put on your armor every day. Thank you for walking me through this battle, because the only way out is through. There's no way to go around it. You have to soldier through. There's no one out there who is fake awake. I talked about this in my last video, trying to say that they are in the light, but they haven't done their shadow work. They're a counterfeit. There's no one that is fake awake that can say they are any kind of earth angel or they have any kind of temperance if they haven't gone through struggle, if they haven't gone through hard times. Because in your walk with God, in your spiritual awakening, you have to go through hell to get to heaven. It is so hard. It is so painful. And like I've said before, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So there's no way that you can talk about being in the light if you haven't gone through hell in the dark, if you haven't gone through horrible, treacherous situations that have strengthened you, that have enlightened you to let you know about the way that all of the darkness looks, that all of the agents of the devil, what they're going to do, what their plans are, so that you can have that iron tight discernment against manipulation and abuse, so that you don't fall for it and go back to it. God's going to test you. He's going to try you. He's going to say, do they really deserve what I have for them? Do they really deserve the gifts, the ascension? Do they really deserve what I have planned next? Are they going to go back to the way that they were before? Have they learned to discern? Have they learned to be calm and control their anger? Have they learned to come to me and give me everything that they have no control over? Are they going to surrender? Are they locked in? Are they ride or die for me? He's going to put you through all of that before you get to level up. And the next level is going to have new devils, and he will prepare you for that as well if he hasn't already prepared you for it. So you have all these tools in your tool belt to combat things that are put out there to make you angry, things that are put out there to make you react, so that you don't do it. You've seen it. You've been guided to yoga. Yoga's very calming. I can tell you with 100% honesty that I took some yoga courses after I had my first baby. And I've done yoga on my own several times since then, because I hated the constant corrections that some yoga teachers will give you, especially if you're new to the game. They'll come around and the one that I had anyway, I should say, the one that I had would constantly correct me. And that's fine at first, but when it happens like the whole time and you're not having a good experience and you're not learning, you just feel like it's overbearing and unnecessary. And we paid a lot for these classes too, but still, I still kept throwing myself back in and trying to get the most out of it, because I wanted to learn yoga. I have been to church years and years and years of my life. Even went to a Christian school, right? I've said this before, but I know I have new followers. So excited. Thank you guys. I know I have new followers. So in case you haven't watched older videos and you don't want to go back, or you haven't gotten to it yet, whatever, I want to tell you these things. But anyway, I have been in church and had religious experiences so many times. Way less. Like church would be like this, yoga would be like this. And I can tell you that after I walked out, even with the correcting, after I walked out of my first yoga class, I felt closer to God, more grounded, more encompassing of love and connectedness, and how we were all intertwined with nature. Everything in me felt alive. I felt better after leaving that first yoga class than I did in all of my years going to church and serving God around a bunch of people and being led by a reverend or a pastor. In that 1 hour, I walked out feeling mind blown, amazing. All of these bells and whistles going off, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. This is out of this world. I am in tune with all of this stuff. And I had some very emotional experiences, not altar calls that I was at, but other people that were called to the altar. Great sermons that were given, times that I just felt so proud of the church that I was in because of the work that we were doing for kids. Vacation Bible schools, the way that the pastor would talk to kids and lead them to God, or that people would pull together, being in small churches where they didn't care what you wore. It wasn't this big production with a band and a projector and all this other stuff. I had great experiences in church, so I'm not trying to say I never had a good experience in church, but all of those experiences, good and bad put together, in all the years that I went to church, did not compare one bit to how I felt after I had concentrated on my breath, how I had meditated, how I had stretched and opened my chakras and tried to remove any blockages by breathing through it and opening my channels so that everything could flow freely, and then coming out of that and everything being just like so crisp, me feeling so rejuvenated, energized, close to God. I felt so much better after that 1 hour of yoga, and every time since then with yoga, than I had with all of that church. So put things like that into practice, whatever works for you, whatever tools that God has led you to and given you the experience from. Look into those things, build off of those things, transmute the negative energy with dancing, with writing, with being creative, with exercise, whatever it is that makes you feel great when you get out of your head, that you don't let the overthinking and the spiraling grab hold of you and control your mind. So have that control over you, that emotional control, that creative outlet, that positive coping skills, the meditation, the connection with God, the connection to source, praying, meditating, journaling. I know I'm leaving some things out, but you get the gist, right? Let all of those things be your focus, and don't lose your focus. And if you start to be triggered, that shows you where you need to work still, because we're always a work in progress. We're never done. Never going to be done. You're always going to have triggers. You're always going to have some more shadow work. You're always going to need something to be fine-tuned, unpacked, addressed, right? That doesn't need to be done in public. That doesn't need to be a reaction. It can be worked on in private. It can be sorted out. It can be smoothed over. There can be a coping skill for every single thing, right? So that's what this message is about. I want you guys to do that. Don't let the projections of others control you. Don't let their attacks, their abuse, don't let the numbers of people coming against you, only let that empower you. If there's a whole bunch of people coming against you, if something's telling you you're being gang stalked, that's how much more important you are. That's how strong God has made you. That's how bright you're shining, because it takes that many people to come up against you and not even do anything. They may get a small thing that God gave them, and it was something that God allowed because it's part of his plan. But in the end, all of those people don't matter. Numbers don't matter. What matters is God, your connection with him, you walking in the light, you shining brightly, you having compassion for others. You don't dish out what they're serving you. You don't. You take